lives out of Ann Arbor, so you're not going to be in the city in that time as well. So that means right from March all the way till September, you're not going to be in the city. So when you're searching for an apartment and you sign a 12-month lease, there's going to be a big portion of that when you're not in Ann Arbor. So if you don't have a lot of stuff and you do not want to pay that additional rent, and you're fine with moving out of your apartment in April and go out for your internship, and when you come back you can move into a different apartment, you should also think about whether you would want to go in for a shorter lease period. There are certain apartments available where the landlord sets a lease period of 9 months, but this is not the norm. Typically it's 12 months. But when you're searching for apartments, I would say this is the second parameter that you should think about, is whether the apartment is available for a 9-month lease or a 12-month lease, and if that is something that you really want to do. The third parameter that you should think about is your budget. Yes, you're a student. That paycheck has stopped coming into your bank account every month. So you're living on a shoestring budget. So you need to really think about how much money you're ready to spend on your apartment. Now, depending on the amount of luxury you want in your apartment, your rent could go really high. Or if you don't mind living a very Spartan lifestyle, you could pay a very small rent as well. One-bedroom apartments are available right from $600 a month all the way to $1,500 a month, depending on how much you're ready to pay. A two-bedroom apartment, on the other hand, is available all the way from $800 a month to $2,000 a month. So you need to think about what is your budget and how much you want to spend on apartments before you actually go out and search for apartments, and I think that is your third parameter. The fourth parameter is, and this is specific to people who are bachelors and people who are not married, don't have kids, are you going to stay with roommates or not? I did stay with a roommate in the past year, and I think it's really helpful because B-School can be stressful at times. It's amazing to have a roommate at home, come back and talk to him or her about what's going on in school. So you should think about whether you want to get a roommate or not. And if you get a roommate, then the questions about the budget should be discussed with your roommate, and you should think about what kind of an apartment you want to go and get. So those are, I think, the 4 big parameters. So the next important thing that I want to talk about is the lease agreement. For a lot of you, this is the first time you're going to sign a lease in the US, and it can seem daunting at first because you're signing this big piece of legal agreement. So let me just talk about the lease agreement in general. It's generally a 10-page or a bigger document depending on how specific your landlord is. The lease agreement has some very specific sections. I would not be super terrified by all these sections. Many of the sections in your lease agreement are things that legally the landlord is supposed to tell you before you sign the lease. Make sure you read through all of them and there's nothing wrong with any of the sections or what's being told in any of the sections, but don't be super scared of this big document that you sign. Typically, when you sign a lease in the US, your landlord does a check on your leasing history. So if you've lived in the US before, then the landlord would go and check your leasing history in the past, whether you paid your lease on time, whether your previous landlords had any specific complaints about you or not. For others who are coming for their first time, since you do not have a leasing history, the landlord cannot really go and check anything about you. But in this case, since this is your first apartment, this is when your leasing history starts. So you need to make sure that whatever you do during the year you're on lease, everything is recorded, so make sure you pay your lease on time. If you don't, that reflects badly on your leasing history. And the next time you rent an apartment, then that landlord would know that you were not paying your lease on time. So make sure that you pay your lease on time when you're renting the apartment. typically the landlord would ask for a deposit from you, which is generally refundable unless you really harm the apartment or destroy parts of it that he needs to clean or he needs to buy new stuff. Unless something like that happens, you typically get your deposit back. And the deposit typically is about 1.5 months rent. So if your rent for your apartment is $800, then your deposit would be about $1,200. It's about 1.5 times whatever the rent you're paying on your apartment. And your rent and your deposit typically needs to be paid in advance. So the rent needs to typically be paid on the first of the month, but this could vary depending on your landlord. So those are the key things I think you need to know before you go ahead and search for apartments, and as you're looking for apartments. There are a lot of resources available to you provided by the Ross School of Business and your friends who are also admitted to the school, and I would definitely recommend going and using those resources. Some additional resources that I would recommend are, there's a website called Craigslist, craigslist.org. A lot of landlords do post ads on this website, so I would definitely recommend this website. Browse through the ads on this website, reach out to people. Many a time, since you're not in the country right now, you cannot really see the apartment on your own, but you can ask the landlord to mail you pictures, and I have done that. Many landlords are willing to take pictures of the apartment and mail them to you. There's definitely a Google group for your class, so reach out to other people from your class. Talk to people and see what others are doing. It's an amazing resource. You would have got an admit binder which has details about apartments in the city of Ann Arbor. Go through that admit binder. I would use that as your starting point when you search out for apartments. I hope that this video was helpful to you and you feel better armed when you go out and search for apartments now. But in spite of this, if you do have questions on apartments or how you should search for apartments, feel free to reach out to me at this email address, and I would be glad to respond to any questions you have. Again, welcome to the city of Ann Arbor, welcome to the Ross School of Business, and go Blue!